coworker of mine asked me if I would do his CV axles for him, so here we are. This is a 4th generation Honda CR-V all-wheel drive, but we're only doing the constant velocity axles in the front. So let's jump right in and I'm going to show you how we're going to get this done. First things first, obviously we're going to jack up the front end of this car, and as a safety measure, let's get some jack stands under the car so that we don't get hurt. We'll take the wheels off from the front, and I believe there is a splash guard made of plastic underneath that will facilitate the access for one of these two axles. I'm not sure which one it is exactly. And once we take that off, we'll get started with the job. As always, get yourself one of these maintenance manuals. This is the one for this particular car. And we will be working in Chapter 8, Section 10, which describes the removal of the CV axles in the front. As you know, guys, I always recommend getting yourself one of these manuals because not only does it provide the procedures, but it also gives you the torque specs for the job. Okay, like I said, we start out by removing the lug nuts. These are 19 millimeter size. And the wheel is off. Next, we will remove this plastic shroud to facilitate the access for the inner part of the CV axles, and we will do so by removing several of these quick disconnects right here, and they're all the way around. There are several of them, so I'm going to prop you up and I'm going to show you how easy this is as well. Okay, get yourself one of these tools or just a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, and that'll help you to remove these clips. As you can see, I did not remove the whole plastic shroud here because we have plenty of access to get to the right side, the passenger side, the CV axle, to pop that out from here with a pry bar and a hammer when it comes to it. Not to mention this shroud has there are a ton of clips and they're everywhere, and some of these clips are actually bolts and they seem to be seized and not coming out. But anyway, as I said, we have now sufficient space or sufficient access to get the job done. So now let's pick a side. We'll do the driver's side and we'll get started with that one. Okay, what we're gonna do is remove this axle nut right here. Ironically, the old one is a 36 millimeter, but the new ones are actually 35 millimeter. And then what we'll do is we'll remove these, I don't know if you can see these 3 nuts and bolts right here. We'll be able to lower the control arm and move the suspension backwards, pop the axle out, and remove the CV axle. Let me show you. The first thing we'll do is open up the safety here. We'll use a chisel for it. And we're not reusing this nut nor the axle, but I've had experiences in the past where trying to take the nut off turned into the thread on the axle ended up stripping, and it became a thing. It became a thing. So we're gonna do the best that we can to open up this part right here, so to facilitate the removal of the axle. There it is, came off. And the axle is also free to move. I like that. Next, we'll remove, as I mentioned, the lower control arm, 3 nuts and bolts here. The removal of the lower control arm, they're 17 millimeters. There you go, these are out. And now with a pry bar, we should be able to separate this and move the axle out of the way, like so. Look at that, we don't even need a pry bar. All right, that's it, the axle is out. And last, from underneath, you should be able to pry the drive shaft out. There it is, it popped out. We can finish the pull the shaft out like so. Let me show you. There it is, the drive shaft is out. The owner of this car also asked me if I would replace the output seal of this car, so we will do that as well. Surprisingly, unlike the Toyota, my wife's car, this transmission, I don't know if it's a differential or these shafts goes directly into the transmission, but it didn't leak any oil. It does look like it's got some wet areas everywhere, and it looks like it's leaking oil, this car. I don't know, it might be engine, I don't know. But let's try to remove the seals. I'm going to use this 90-degree pick to start with. It is an interference fit seal, and it may be, I don't know, we'll see how easy it is to remove this thing. That's out. Spring is out. This might be a little bit harder than I thought to. Okay, we might have to get some kind of pry tool to get this seal out, like a screwdriver or even a pry bar or something. Let's try a little something. Let's see if maybe it'll come out like this. Nothing. Okay, we're gonna have to try something different. I am honest with you when I say that I do my best to try to show you guys everything. This time I couldn't quite do it. The seal did come out. Here's the old one right here. And the way I did it was from underneath. With a pry bar, I essentially put it like so and just popped it out. Sorry guys, I couldn't show you that. And but we are going to install the new one. We're going to put a little bit of lubricant around the edges to facilitate the install. Here it is, and then we'll just press it in with a socket. We'll prop it in. This is an interference fit seal, so we'll prop it in by hand first, and then we'll finish to punch it in nice and easy with a socket, and hopefully I'll be able to show you that. As always guys, when you're doing seals and when you're doing shafts, it's always a good idea to replace the seals. Not the seals. When you're doing shafts, it's always a good idea to replace the seals, guys. It's a good practice, and it makes for, because the last thing you want to do is to replace a shaft and then everything goes back hunky-dory, you start to drive and the seal is leaking. So it's only a few dollars, replace it, and it gives you a peace of mind. All right, let's prop you up and put the seal in. All right, we'll try to prop it up by hand first. See if we can get it to stick. There we go, and now we should be able to finish the install with a socket. We'll just punch it in with a hammer a little bit. Okay, the new seal is in, and it was actually a lot easier than I thought. All I did is use essentially the back of this hammer as a dowel against the seal, and I used a rubber mallet just to tap it in. So until the seal is flush with the transmission, and it is, now we could slip in the dry shaft of the CV axle. But before we do that, let's go over some part numbers. Now, this gentleman here looks like he got his drive axles from Rock Auto, and I don't know where he got the seal from, but the seal part number on the driver's side for the output is 1394021. Looks like it's a GM part number. It's for the drive axles. Odd numbers on the left, even numbers are on the right. For the passenger side is HO-8476, whereas for the driver side, HO-8473. Obviously, make sure that the axles look the same, and they're the proper length, and it looks like in this case they are. You know, as I look at these axles, I don't know why this gentleman asked me to do the axles for him, but nevertheless, they are getting done, so we can now slip the axle in. One last little caveat, be sure to use a little bit of lube around where the axle meets the seal so that we don't run the risk of possibly cutting the seal. I don't anticipate doing that, but you know, you never know. All right, so I'm gonna prop you up on a stand and let's slap this axle in. All right, guys, we're going in with the new axle. Be super careful. Make sure you're going straight. See if you could maybe with a rubber mallet. There it is. It looks like it went in. And we are in, guys. All right, so now I'm gonna prop you up. We can put this axle in through the back like so, and slip it in. Slip it in the knuckle. So the axle is in the transmission with the new seal, but before we continue further and slide the other end of the CV axle into the knuckle, we're going to put some anti-seize compound on the splines of the knuckle and shaft, so if this was to ever come out again, at least it won't be stuck. So now you'll notice that I put a bungee cord on the knuckle and disc assembly so that we can, all right, so now, there we go. This thing should be sliding in. Come on, baby. There it is, it's in. Woo! Now we could put in the nut, the new nut that came with it. All right, so this part is done. We can now release the bungee cord, and we can hook up the lower control arm back on the lower ball joint, like so. I gotta tell you that sometimes, guys. Let's get a pry bar. There it is. It is in. We can now put the nuts and bolts on it. Okay, once we've inserted the ball joint to the lower control arm, these nuts and bolts, I'm going to put a little bit of medium type Loctite. It's blue in color. We'll put some on the shafts here as well, so that reducing the chance of these possibly coming loose. Not that I anticipated that they will, but you know, you never know. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're gonna snug them down with our trusty impact tool. Just snug them down. And the torque on these nuts and bolt is 38 foot-pounds. There it is. All right, this is done. Now we can snug axle nut down. Okay, we can now torque it as well. And I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. Okay, the torque on this nut is 342 foot-pounds. What we're doing is we're using a breaker bar to lock it in place. And we're using a 3/4 drive. We're using a pry bar to keep the axle steady. And we're using a 3/4 drive breaker bar with a torque adapter. And we're going to always to 342 to, here it is, 244 foot-pounds. That's good enough. All right. Not 340, 242 foot-pounds. And we made it to 244. That's good enough, guys. We are torqued. And we can now stake this part right here. This is what it looks like, this tool. Let me show it to you. I got to tell you guys, this is one of my favorite investments. This breaker bar, which you'll see the design, it's forked on the outside rather than the bar having a fork. It can withstand torques a lot better. And it's a 3/4 drive. I bought a 3/4 drive digital torque adapter that is calibrated. It's by NACO, and this thing is a beast, guys. And then just from a 3/4 drive to a 1/2-inch drive for doing torques like this one right here. And I got to tell you guys, this thing is amazing. You could get yourself something that can go from 130 to 750 foot-pounds or something near like that for half the fraction of the cost that it will cost you to get a torque wrench that can handle this. This right here is calibrated and it works just fine. Like again, it will go from 130 to 750 foot-pounds, guys, for about less than a couple $100. Anyway, let's go ahead and stake this point right here, and we are done. On this side, we can move on to the other side. Once everything is torqued, we're gonna get a punch like this one here, and we're gonna stake this so that it doesn't have a chance of turning on you if it ever comes to it. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Here it is, guys. This is it. This is what a stake looks like. All right, so now what we did on the left side, we're gonna do on the right side. We ended up removing the 3 nuts and bolts from under the control arm that connects to the knuckle. Same thing, the axle, and we popped out the axle from that carrier bearing right there. Now that spline right there is not keyed, whereas notice that some of these new shafts are keyed. I don't know if you can see it. Let me see if I can shine a light in it for you. Stand by. You see how the shaft is keyed right there? Its head is right here, but don't worry about it because the carrier bearing or the carrier axle will still accept it. Again, we're just gonna slide it in, we'll tap at it with the mallet, and we'll hook it back in the knuckle, the bearing here, and then I'll show you all the torques for the wheels and put the plastic cover back on. And the new drive shaft or CV axle is installed on the passenger side as well. This is staked, and so are the bolts under here. It's all done and torqued. And in order to install this part of the CV axle onto the carrier bearing, which you can do, is just use the axle itself and kind of nudge it, and the snap ring will accept the drive shaft. So we can now go ahead and put this plastic cover with all the retainers back on, and we can put the wheels back on. Okay. I gotta tell you, I do like this design of just a little snap, these little clips that just go right in. It makes for reinstalling the whole plastic shred on the bottom really easy. It's a nice design. Okay. We then put the wheels on. we go. These are on. Again, make sure that the shield in the back of the rotor doesn't rub. After stugging on the wheels, we can down jack the car. And now we can torque the lug nuts. I don't know if you can see. Torque the lug nuts. Torque is 80 foot-pounds. We'll do it in a star pattern. And personally, I like to go around twice, make sure everything got hit. There we go. My friend, the job is done. If you did everything correctly, you shouldn't have any problems once you go for a test drive. You do want to spin the rotors and the wheels before you go on a test drive. Make sure that that back shielding does not rub. That's important because it's happened to me where I've neglected that very small minor detail and then it ends up grinding and it's annoying and so on and so forth. I'm going to take it for a test drive, make sure everything is copacetic. You, on the other hand, be sure to smash that like button, share with your friends, and remember to subscribe. I will see you at the next video. Take care.